Nothing Wrong with Orange and Blue Podcast.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue. I am your host, Isaiah Henderson, and it is with me today, stepping in, is Glenn Mile High Fiber Hauser. How's it going, Glenn?
I'm regular as can be, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate you stepping in today and stepping up. Glad to have Glenn on the show. So everybody in the comments, say what's up to Glenn. Unfortunately, Johnny couldn't be here today because his work schedule changed. And that being said, we have some bad news. Today is the last episode of Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue. And that is because we are now moving to Fridays. So Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue for season 2, because season 2 has finally arrived for MHRT Podcast. So season 2 starting next Friday, Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue will be on Fridays at 7, 6, 5, and 4 on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Also, don't forget to check out the other MHRT networks, which is Broncos Talk on Tuesday at 7, 6, 5, 4 on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch as well, with the 6'10" Mexican and Richie. Also, make sure to tune in on Thursday for our flagship pod, MHRT, with Glenn Hauser. He's right here. Mundungus Creevy, Mr. Boggins, and the 6'10" Mexican at 7654 on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. As normal, you guys already know the deal. It's nothing new. So go ahead, like, subscribe, and share. And don't forget to comment. We're on a quest to 1,000 subscribers, and season 2 is coming. Ladies and gentlemen, you do not want to miss season 2. According to the boss man, I can't tell you how much season 2 is going to rock. I can just tell you it's going to rock. So you have to be there for the start of season 2, and we need you guys to subscribe. Also, hit that notification bell. Anytime an MHRT podcast pops up, ding, you get the notification bell, and you can immediately tune in and watch it with us. Glenn, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be on the show with you today. So
yeah, but we appreciate that, Glenn. You watched the game last night?
Of course. Yeah.
What did you think?
Well, it was a slow start. So all can agree on that.
All right.
And, but once both quarterbacks got cooking, it was fun to watch. And the thing to me that was exciting was seeing some of those injured players actually coming back. You know, seeing Vaughn looking like the vintage Vaughn, seeing Cortland not so much the touchdown, but that play, his initial reception when he made that cut on his left leg. And then made the reception. I mean, that was such a huge play for him. And then Alberto,
trying to be a superhero,
hurdling guys that weren't even trying to go low, but testing out that knee on someone's face mask. You know, all those cool things that, and those 3 players that I just mentioned, Vic actually picked as the team captains because they were coming back from injury. So that was a pretty cool gesture that he did. What do you think?
No. All 3 of them look good. At first, with Cortland Sutton, I thought you can tell he's running with a slight limp. And then someone released the video of him making that cut, and I was like, oh, this dude's good. Oh, he's fine. Because if you're not 100%, you're not going to make a move like that. And then be able to lose the defender in the process, I was extremely impressed. I was like, okay. I was worried about it. I was like, I don't know about Cortland. But when I saw that video, I was like, oh, this is a done deal. To be able to move like that, especially with coming back from an ACL tear, his props to his trainers and his physical therapy. He said he worked hard all off season, and we can definitely see it. So speaking of that, guys, come on and join the MHRT Fantasy League. DM us for details. If you can DM me at Word Over World on Twitter. Don't forget the 2 underscores, or you can DM Glenn at Glenn Hauser. Very simple. So that way you can get the details for the MHRT Fantasy League. I'm going to win. That's not a question, but I need 7, 8, 9, 10 losers. So please don't forget to sign up for the MHRT Fantasy League. So we're coming in hot. The comments are already in. We got EJ. EJ says, what's up, Broncos country? Dave Full Glassman's in the house. Johnny's still watching. Thanks, Johnny, for watching, even though he cannot be here. So we got Mobad in the house. Yo, Mobad in the house. What's up, Mobad? So we are coming in. So let's get this out of the way really quickly. The quarterback competition has been called. Teddy Bridgewater is the starting quarterback. Now, if you're a Broncos fan, you're going to support Teddy Bridgewater, and you're going to support the Denver Broncos because it's about the name on the front and not on the back. Everybody has their players. Everybody has their preferred players. We understand that. But here in Broncos country at NRWOB, the NRW crew, we're going to support the Broncos, no matter what, we can have our preferences. We can have our preferences. We can have our biases, but we will support the Broncos. Karen Baki's in the house. Hey, mama. She says, hi, guys. Glad the preseason games were our wins. Go Broncos. Yes, absolutely. 3-0. It's preseason, but we got to see a good look. Wiz Kid's in the house. He said, hello. What's up, Wiz Kid? So what did you think about – you said that you mentioned the slow start, Glenn.
Right.
When you saw that slow start, what were you thinking? What was going through your mind?
I wasn't too worried. What really went through my mind was that the people that were against Teddy getting picked were going to just go berserk. There could be some boos. Broncos Twitter could get even more nasty. That's all I was thinking. I wasn't worried about long-term ramifications. I just thought that maybe it would just fuel the fire. But Teddy doesn't seem fazed by much. I'm excited about the choice. I think the Broncos could win with both of these guys. I think we're in a good position because there's a very good possibility Drew will still be able to play based on, knock on wood, or God forbid, an injury. So I think we're in a good position, especially not having to give up any of our skill positions, any of our draft capital in order to get another big name quarterback. I think we're going to be fine with Teddy. For sure.
I agree. So everybody has their biases and their preferences. Did you have one, Glenn?
Honestly, I didn't. Was I tired of the mistakes? Yes. Did I think that Teddy was probably going to be the better choice? I do. And the reason being is, and it really became more evident. I don't want to say indifferent. I was just interested in seeing how the coaches were going to select. But once Teddy was picked and the coaches talked, but more so the players, including Drew, and they discussed what he brings to the table outside of the huddle, also inside of the huddle, in the locker room, the other things. Drew was even talking with reverence to his competitor. And it just showed, there's a big gap between the leadership capabilities of those two guys. And I think that had a big part of the decision. So I think it's a good choice. I think Drew can do nothing but go up in terms of his career from sitting and watching a guy like this. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of animosity between the two of them. They seem to get along. So I think it's a good choice and a solid choice for this team.
I agree. My preference is, everybody knows, I'm on the Drew Lock train. I'm a fan of Drew Lock. But at the same time, when the decision was made, I wouldn't say I was upset, but I was like, I wanted Drew, but Teddy. And then I sat there and I thought about it. And in my personal opinion, I don't think Drew is done in Denver. I do not. And like you said, with the leadership aspect of Teddy Bridgewater, I think that's another thing that Drew can learn from Teddy. One of the big things, I think Dalton Reisner or Garrett Bowles both mentioned it, was he needs to step up in leadership. And they definitely saw the difference. That's one thing all the players said about Teddy was you can definitely see the leadership in him, the vet presence, and the huddle is jumping. So Drew Lock improved on his mechanics, and he also improved on his skills, but also he can, by sitting back and watching Teddy and learning from Teddy this season, I think he can also pick up that leadership skills. He can sit back and watch, okay, how does Teddy handle himself in these situations? And you can tell he's become a leader and he's going up a little bit in his press conference after Teddy was named the starter. Right. And he just got praise across all Broncos country that he handled himself really well. But I also agree with you. For the team and the roster that we have this year, I believe Teddy is the right choice. And I think Drew can only get better from sitting behind Teddy.
Teddy was Drew in New Orleans, if you think about it. He sat behind Drew Brees, and Teddy has talked about, I basically learned how to be a professional. I learned how to prepare. I learned how to, one of the things that he talks about is routine. Teddy actually talked about what this team needs to develop is a routine. And when you look at one of the things that was really lacking from the Broncos last year is with all the veteran injuries, we had very young guys. And I think it's extremely hard for a quarterback who's in his second year, who has, 5 games under his belt, to all of a sudden establish himself as a leader when they're all in the early 20s. They're just a very, very young team. So now that we have some older players, and we talk about Teddy like he's his old man, and he's only 28. shocking. He seems like he's in his early 30s just by the way he carries himself. But I think those are the traits that you develop over time, and you become as you become a professional from really watching other people. It's without rambling on, when we had Ryan Edwards on our show, he talked about Peyton Manning, and when Peyton came in, just the whole feel in the facility was different because the expectation level was higher. He made everybody better just because there were higher expectations. And sometimes you need some newer, more experienced blood to come into the facility, the locker room, the team, and then that's how you grow. And one thing that's been very evident for me with Drew is that in these press conferences throughout training camp and the mini camps, is that he seems, even though he was under a lot of pressure, he seems more relaxed than he was at all last year. He was very edgy last year, I felt, when in these press conferences, and he seemed very comfortable, even though he was disappointed in the last one, but he seemed very comfortable, in this part.
Yeah, I think Teddy being there definitely helped him mature a lot. I mean, last season, his press conference, if you notice, he constantly play with his hair. This year, his hands are on the podium. He's making eye contact. He's answering the questions. He's definitely grown up. And you're right. Last year, he got the raw end of a deal. He was looked to be the leader when he was just as old as everyone else that was around him. So seeing, and you're right about, Teddy being in New Orleans. Drew gets to watch a backup teach him how to be a backup. That doesn't mean you'll be a backup forever, but he gets to learn the mentality of what it means to be a backup and not having your confidence shaken and staying ready and being prepared no matter what. Because when Drew Brees went down, Teddy Bridgewater had to step up, and they went 5-0, and he held it down until Drew came back. So that's something to look at from Teddy. That's something to pick his brain about. And like Teddy said about Drew, he's a guy that just wants a plethora of knowledge, and that's one of the things that I expect Drew to definitely pick his brain about. And I don't think Teddy's definitely not the type of person to look down upon Drew because he's a backup, because he came from being a backup. So there's so many intangibles and tangibles that Drew can learn from Teddy. And like I said, with the roster that we have now this year, the elite defense, the explosive offense, I think Teddy was the good choice. Whether Vic Fangio or Pat Shamar are on their last leg or their last straw, whatever, I think this is the right choice. And I think Drew sitting behind Teddy can only advance his game. So in the comments, we have Dave Glassman. He says, I wish we could implant Teddy's brain and maturity into Locke's body. Yes. That would create the ultimate quarterback. Yeah, that would be a fantastic quarterback. You have the Locke's talent and his arm with Teddy's brain and maturity, and you basically create, I don't know, some super quarterback. So that would be great. Can't do it, but that would be great. Locke can only get better. But Mobad comes in. He says Bridgewater will get better. Yes, I agree with that. I think with this team, he will maximize his efficiency. But I know what the coaches want from it is they also want him to push the ball downfield more. And I think that's something that will be on Bridgewater's mind. Will be pushing the ball downfield, which will make him improve and open up that area of the game that he didn't necessarily utilize as often before. Because, I mean, when you have Courtland Sutton, KJ Hamler, Jerry Jeudy, Noah Fant, you're gonna have to push the ball down the field. Any one of those receivers can open up the field and draw safety. So you're gonna have to utilize those mismatches and those double teams and definitely take the chances. So I think Teddy Bridgewater will get better in that area of his game because he's already maximized his efficiency.
Think about it. How easy will it be to push things down the field when you have that talent? When you have, with even KJ's speed, just things are going to be opened up, and the running game, is going to be strong this year, presumably. So all these things factor into. I'm not too worried, but I just want to go back to Teddy with the Saints. I can imagine that they would prefer to have him back there, at this time, but he left. Yeah. He signed a 3-year, $63 million contract, $30 million guaranteed. So the reason why the Panthers are paying some of his salary was not to get rid of him. It was because it was part of his contract, right? So that there's a narrative that they're paying to get rid of this guy. Obviously it was not a good experience for anybody there. It certainly seems like, but I'm not overly worried about the ball being pushed downfield. So
Okay. I mean, so with the drive yesterday, the first two drives, Teddy didn't look too well, but he did on that third drive where he scored a touchdown. I don't think he pushed the ball down the field, but he did move the ball, and we did score a touchdown, which is something that the Broncos have had problems with in the past, which was getting the ball in the end zone, red zone efficiency percentage. And I think that's something that is improved. And one of the secret weapons we have is Albert O, who we really have not been able to see in the red zone. And that's one of the big reasons why Broncos country is so excited for him, is because he's a big body for the red zone. So that's just something that we haven't even opened up on. So that's great. But my position is, I don't think Drew Lock's done in Denver. That's me. That's what I said. I'm sticking to it. Then what do you think about that? Because I mean, I was listening to MHH for the first time, I think like over a year last night. They think they're adamant. They think Drew's done. They think unless Teddy gets injured or he completely bombs, they think he's done. They think he's done. I disagree. What do you think, Glenn?
I think a lot of people think he's done. He is under contract next year, and he's not expensive. So if he ends up being a backup next year, or even the starter, depending on what happens this season, it's not a guarantee that he's gone.
Right?
Why would you? The guy's got potential. I mean, I just rewind to a year ago when we started MHRT, and before any of the injuries that decimated this team, we were under the impression that Drew could have like an MVP type of season with the talent, and we were very, very excited. I know there's the orange colored glasses and getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but there was all sorts of potential surrounding him, and he made a lot of mistakes. He made, a lot of errors, and it's not hating, it's a fact. At one time he was ranked 33rd, 34th in the NFL in a league that has 32 teams. When you have backups ranked better than you, something is amiss. So the Broncos need to protect themselves from that not happening again, and thus Teddy. I mean, you couldn't pull Drew and put Jeff Driscoll in there and think that there's going to be an improvement. Even with Drew making these mistakes, that's still a disaster.
Right.
So
I think you mentioned. Go ahead.
No, finish. Say what you were going to say.
I think for Drew, I think the great improvement that he's made, the great progress that we all see, that the coaches have seen. Teddy's on a 1 year deal, and I think Teddy's more of I think Drew is the franchise quarterback, and I think, in my opinion, I would like to see it as Peyton Manning leaving and the Broncos trying to hand the reins over to Brock Osweiler is the same as Teddy Bridgewater's contract is up, and then handing the reins over to Drew. Because like you said, he'll be coming up on his 4th year next year. And I believe they have an option to pick up his 5th year option in his contract, correct?
No, because he was a 2nd round pick. That's only available for 1st rounders.
Okay, so next year will be his. So next year, if he starts, it's his make or break year for his big contract.
Right.
So do you think, with that being said, you think Teddy has the potential to be the Broncos franchise quarterback? Like you said, he's only 28, 8 years in the league. You think he's going to be you think he has the potential to be the Broncos franchise quarterback? If so, what does he have to do this year to solidify that?
Honestly, I think it's a tough conversation to even consider at this point, because it's just such a mystery, where this team is going to go. So I don't know what he would have to do at that point. The cap is going to be through the roof. The available money is going to be through the roof. There should be some other veterans that are available. Rodgers definitely is from all reports, and perhaps a Russell Wilson. So I don't know what's going to happen in terms of that. I do think that this team has a ridiculous amount of potential, and I'm excited about it. So why don't we talk about some of the players last night that really stood out for right off the bat? I mean, Melvin Gordon looks like he's 23 years old.
He looked incredible. And he said this offseason, he said, people have overlooked me. And he said he's coming back with a vengeance. And he looked good out there. He looked like he did when he first started with the Chargers, I believe he went to a Pro Bowl. But he looked like he was worth that 2-year, $8 million contract last night. And he looked good. I mean, he saw that, all the hype Javonte Williams was getting and people calling for him to be RB1 as a rookie. And Melvin Gordon came out there and with that vet experience and really ran the ball healthy, and he looked good. And he can catch. He's got good hands, so he fits Pat Shermer's scheme very well. The other one that we want to talk about is Jonathan Cooper once again. That dude is what round do we draft him? 6th?
7.
7th round? He's that good as a 7th round pick out of Ohio State?
Well, he was the word got out that he had the heart issue, so that's why he dropped. He should have been, 3rd, 4th. And
he fixed it, and he looks, and people are calling that the steal of the draft.
I mean, that absolutely.
Yeah, that tackle he made where he grabbed the dude and flipped him over, and then he had his own. The game before that, he had 2 sacks, 1 strip sack. I mean, the dude is good. He looks like, I mean, him and Malik Reed. If Bradley Chubb and Von Miller were to ever just depart for no reason whatsoever, Jonathan Cooper and Malik Reed would be just fine. They would be just fine.
What's cool about it is Malik is actually he and Cooper are working together after practice. So Cooper was interviewed the other day by Phil Milani, and he was talking about how these guys have taken him under their wing, but they also see the talent, they see the hard work, they see him coming back from the adversity. He had 3 heart procedures.
Man, I didn't know that.
Yes, since the draft, and I don't know how many he was supposed to have, but it wasn't supposed to be 3, is what he said. That there were obviously some issues there that required another procedure. So he's bounced back, and he's playing like this. I mean, it's just sick.
Yeah, and Peyton, good call for Peyton to see the health issues, which a lot of teams passed up on, and still decided to take a chance on the dude. One, first and foremost, that makes Broncos country look really good to have great depth on the edge rusher. And 2, it makes Peyton look good, like he knows what he's doing. He has an eye for talent. So we just absolutely love Jonathan Cooper in Broncos country. So that's fantastic. So Dave comes in, and he this is in regards to what Teddy has to do to be the franchise quarterback. You say win a couple playoff games. So more than 1 or just 1. So if we get to the wild card game and we lose, do we give him the contract, or do we go to the wild card game and the first round or whatever, and we win? So, let's be specific. Let's talk about what we think Teddy Bridgewater has to do. I think past round 1. Round 1, he gets the contract. If we don't, and back what you said earlier, Glenn, of Aaron Rodgers, I think if we move on from Teddy Bridgewater, I don't think there's a need to go get another quarterback. We saw the great improvement from Drew, and he got to sit behind him. I think that's his last year. I say we hand the reins over to Drew and see what he can do. There should be more trust in him, but in my opinion, I say he has to win at least 1 playoff game.
So Dave just said win the wild card in the divisional game. I wouldn't be so quick to just dismiss other options after the season, quite honestly.
I mean, based the way we know Peyton, he's obviously going to look around. He's going to talk to some people. But he's going to know it's not going to be that much of like this offseason. There was a sense of urgency for a quarterback. I think after this season, I think that sense of urgency is going to decrease a little bit. We have Drew in the wings. We can still re-sign Teddy and give him that contract if we want to. And we have other quarterbacks out there that are looking to leave, and we have that option. So I think that sense of urgency won't be there as much. But for people who don't want to talk about the Broncos today, because for some reason they want to talk about the punter from the Rams.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me?
But Bojorquez. Yeah, that's his name, Bojorquez. Dave says, "Oh my God, I want Perkins from LA to come in for ripping and their punter as well." Richie says, "Can we talk about LA's punter?" Wow. Yeah, I think their starting punter is out, and I think he just lost his job. He had 2 punts that pinned him down at the 1-yard line. One bounced at the 1-yard line and went out of bounds. It was just incredible. And then he had another 70-yard punt. Yeah, that was
bounced sideways out of the at the 1 yard also. I mean, poor Drew got stuck at the 1 yard line twice, because of his punter. And
is that the one where he scored the touchdown? One of those both of those were 3 and outs.
I can't remember if they were 3 and outs, but they didn't result in any points. But the Johnny Hecker's one of the top punters, if not the top in the NFL for the Rams. I mean, he's even famous for passing the ball and when they do fakes on 4th down. but he makes a ton of money, and I think that there's a very good possibility he's a cap casualty cut on this. He's been out also on the COVID list. So,
I mean, yeah, Bajorquez he definitely made a case for that spot. I mean, a really good case. He's
made a case for their spot on any team.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, any team. Yeah, if he's a cap casualty, Bajorquez, which I don't think he will be, he's definitely getting calls all over the league. Because that was just, if the Rams had won, he would have been player of the game. EJ comes in. What's up, EJ? He says Locke probably will not get a second contract with the Broncos. Peyton will likely draft a rookie quarterback and re-sign Teddy if he plays decent. I can definitely see that. That's definitely an option. Draft a rookie quarterback and then re-sign re-sign Teddy. Yeah, because Drew's on his last year of his contract. There's no need to just sit him and do nothing with him and just have him there, especially if you're going to draft one. Might as well let Drew test the water the same way they did with Philip Lindsay and let him see who's out there and who could want him. Drew's earned. I don't think Drew's a backup. I think Drew is a starting quarterback, and the preseason stats were incredible. I think Teddy Bridgewater was 22 of 30 for 241 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and had a 136 passer rating. And Drew Lock's stats were, I believe it was 19 of 28 for 298 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and a 141 passer rating. But Drew did have that strip sack and had that turnover. And I think Drew Lock's 2 fumbles against the Seahawks is kind of what solidified Teddy starting. Because Drew Lock had 1 less incompletion, more yards, the same amount of touchdowns, no interceptions. But those sacks, those fumbles can really make a coach step back and say, you know what, I do want to go with that safer option, especially when your job is on the hot seat.
Yeah, so that's kind of a narrative that you've been hearing a lot this week too, that, they're trying to save their jobs. So they're picking the quarterback that's going to save their jobs. And for me, why wouldn't you pick the quarterback you think is going to win the most games? Like, I don't understand the thought process there. Of course, you're going to pick the one that's going to, save. Forget that. If it saves your job, it's because you won a lot of games. And
right.
Drafting a QB next year, I don't think is going to happen because our expectation is playoffs this year. I think I haven't heard anyone say, or most people are not saying that they don't think we'll at least get the wild card if we stay healthy and perform just even average as a quarterback. But that's going to push us so far late in the first round that really the options at that point, unless you give up the farm to really move forward, are not very good in terms of a draft. That's why I think if you are going to move on from these guys or one of these guys, you're going to go elsewhere. But this first half hour is like completely flown by. But here's EJ. If you want to pull up his last one, because I think that is a very good.
This one
next. No, the one that just came over. I'm sorry. In regards
got
to
it.
McMahon. This is the mystery of all time. I was joking that the 8x10 glossies that McMahon must have of John Elway must be so damaging that for him to be able to keep this position, I cannot believe it. And the fact that Vic is still saying that we need to find players that are going to do this, and coaching is also an issue. Well, coaching was an issue last year. I thought for sure one of the easiest things to fix was getting a new coach. And all right, Prophet, I love it. Our playoff.
What's up, Prophet?
Foretold. Thanks for joining.
Yep. What's up, Mile High Prophet? Appreciate you coming in and joining us. We absolutely love it. Our playoff berth this season has been foretold. I agree with you. And Glenn, I also agree with you. Yeah. We definitely saw that. It was exposed yesterday. Our weakest link is special teams. And I mentioned this, I'm not sure if it was in the group chat or on Twitter I mentioned this, but in a shootout, in a close game where our defense is holding up or our offense is holding up and we're doing good, that weak link in special teams can cost us a game.
Oh,
whether it's a missed field goal, missed extra point, or penalties on kickoff, or punt return for a touchdown or kickoff return for a big gain, that can really cost us. And those holes that the Rams were creating on special teams were huge.
I mean, a 43-yard return after the first touchdown, right? So it's like that takes the air out of the it deflates the balloon a little bit when you're thinking you've got some momentum, and then all of a sudden a guy is just sprinting through. One of the things that Peyton made that may be Rich. But one of the things that Peyton made a point of doing when he was selecting these players was that one of the prerequisites for a lot of these guys that were drafted was that they had to be able to play special teams. And so he was shoring up the special teams with these guys that he was bringing in this year. And if the coaching is piss poor, that's a real problem. And I don't know, honestly, I think you could make that change tomorrow and we would be fine. Like, we'd be better off introducing a brand new guy into the mix.
Bring on that guy. So do we ever figure out, there was a photo circulating on Broncos Twitter of some dude standing next to Vic Fangio. Did we ever figure out who that is?
That guy looked like Fred Willard, like with I don't know what was going on there.
Make him the special teams coach. I don't care.
I mean, he'd be more interesting.
I've never seen that guy before.
That dude, I've never seen him. And people were saying that he's part of like the other production team, but the spiky hair, I mean,
yeah, the jacket.
He must go to the same place where Johnny gets his beard implants. Like the
yeah, some random dude just came off the street, was like, "Hey, can I stand here?" And Vic was like, "Yeah, sure, I don't care." He's like, "Can I have a headset?" They're like, "Yeah, here, take one of these." EJ says Gordon and Sutton looked good against the Rams. They did. Gordon looked good, really good. Sutton looked really good. Von Miller did too. I was trying to pay attention to Von Miller. He definitely was drawing double teams, and you could just see the difference. So, I mean, you can choose. Do I double team Bradley Chubb or do I double team Von Miller? So they were choosing to double team Von Miller, and you could just see his defensive presence out there just made a big difference. I mean, if he didn't get a sack, definitely the pressures was there. So the quarterback had to step up, or the quarterback had to run a lot because Von Miller was in his face immediately, or they had to get rid of the ball. And because of that, I believe, if I'm correct, Bradley Chubb had a sack yesterday, correct?
I have to look. It was they all converged, but Josie Jewell was the main guy.
Josie Jewell had a sack as well. Yeah, Josie Jewell looked good on that sack. Yeah. What do you think about Baron Browning? He had a couple good plays. He's definitely a good tackler. Mm-hmm. But he definitely had a couple plays where you were iffy on his pass coverage. Or what do you think of him so far compared to Justin Sternad?
Well, I mean, Sternad's been there the whole camp. Browning was injured, if you remember, so he was out. Fell behind a little bit, but another one of those Ohio State backers that they're having him play on the inside, and he's going to be solid. I think he just needed to catch up a little bit, so that's why we saw him quite a bit.
And he's definitely one of those special teams guys as well. That's definitely going to play on special teams, especially with Jonathan Cooper as well. They're both going to be on special teams. And you made a great point. There's no point in having all these guys drafted for special teams if your coaching is terrible. And we had the same complaint about Pat Shermer. What's the point of having all these great, explosive, dynamic, potential field guys if you don't have a coach that can utilize their talents? And that's one thing that we definitely mentioned, that it seems like he's improved on. He's definitely used more plays, opened up the playbook for, KJ Hamler. And one thing I mentioned yesterday was I thought Teddy Bridgewater struggled the first couple of drives because of no Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy was there. But I think they were conserving Jerry Jeudy. They used plays, they put him in motion, and then have him swing out. I think they were like specific plays not to use Jerry Jeudy. They didn't want to injure him and all that because he's shown what he can do. And from my opinion, Teddy Bridgewater's number one receiver is Jerry Jeudy. So when they used plays designed not to use Jerry Jeudy, I think Teddy Bridgewater had to adjust to that. And I think it took him a little bit to adjust to not having Jerry Jeudy as his number one target, so he had to go elsewhere. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, you know what? I think in turn, one of the strategies with not throwing it to Jerry early on, I think they were trying to get the ball into Cortland's hands. I mean, I'm sure there was some anxiousness about him playing from his side. I don't think the team was too concerned about it because I can't imagine that they would put him out there if they thought he was susceptible to an injury. But until you're getting a hit, until you're making that catch, you're in front of the fans. And they had 53,000 fans last night. I think it was from what I understand, in terms of all NFL preseason games, it was the biggest crowd. So it was a loud crowd. It was
that's a
exciting.
huge crowd for a preseason game.
So I really think that the play calling last night at the initial couple drives were to get Alberto, Cortland, and Melvin get their beaks wet there. So that's what I think was going on.
Yeah, and one of the and Richie says Browning plays angry. I like it. And EJ says he wished Cush played angry. Speaking of Cush and the offensive line, our starting offensive line is legit. Mm-hmm. I would say top 5 offensive line in the NFL. When it comes to run blocking, the holes are there. They're gaining. Last time on the carries Melvin Gordon had, he averaged 7 yards per carry. That's not regular season, but that's still impressive. That's really impressive.
On 5 carries. I mean, it wasn't 2 carries for 14 yards. I mean, he got 35 yards.
It was like 5 carries. Yeah, 5 carries for 35 yards. So that's 7 yards a carry. That's really impressive. Yeah, that's awesome. And so our starting offensive line with their pass blocking, with their run blocking was really well. So you had Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon, and then you saw they open up play action for Teddy Bridgewater, which we haven't seen much. But when you have that dynamic, that extremely explosive running game, play action is so much easier to play in. And with the pass blocking, you can definitely tell from the starting offensive line to the second and third string offensive line. And there was a huge difference. And I think that's another wink link that has to be tightened up. In my opinion, I was talking to Johnny about this yesterday. Quinn Miners isn't ready yet. And Netani Mutu has some things he needs to be fine-tuned. But, we have the best offensive line coach in the NFL. So Mike Munchak that's his bread and butter.
I will tell you, if anyone goes back and watches the Bridgewater touchdown to Cortland, like I am obsessed with just focusing on Calvin Anderson. And I know in our group chat you mentioned Calvin. And
yes.
That's all of a sudden why I started looking at it. So when he shielded Teddy, and he even had his arms he
had his arms up,
like to just completely shield him and allow him to get around. You will watch this over and over again. Forget about the running to the left, and then just even how Teddy had squared up and Cortland sliding. But watch Calvin on the left tackle spot doing that. That was awesome. I mean,
the first thing
we do have some talent in our second stringers. They're just not gelled to the point of the first guys. So.
Right. And our offensive line is young. Our rookie's a second year. Our left guard is a third year. Bobby Massey, I think, will get the starting slot as a vet, and Graham Glasgow's a vet. So the right side of the offensive line is a vet. Garrett Bowles is in his fourth or fifth year, so he's a vet as well. But the thing that stood out to me about Calvin Anderson on that play specifically was how quick his step was. His quick step off the line was probably one of the quickest I've ever seen. And that edge rusher had no chance. And he put his arms up to shield Teddy and to show the refs, I'm not holding, my arms are in the air. Yeah. So at the same time, he created a wall and allowed Teddy to maneuver out of the pocket and then throw that beautiful squared up pass to Cortland Sutton. So so there's just multiple things that we're just pointing out individually, and that's what preseason is for. That is what preseason is for, is to see that quick step out, to see those hands in the air, to see Teddy Bridgewater roll out of the pocket, to see Cortland Sutton's footwork and his knee when he comes out of a break in preseason, to see how Von Miller brings on double teams but still creates pressure, to see Josie Jewell go on a blitz. And even toward the end, the Rams announcers kept saying it, Vic Fangio's, it's the fourth quarter of a preseason game, and Vic Fangio's still bringing heat. So what it does, it allowed Vic Fangio to also open up his playbook and just start throwing schemes at him. And, that's where a middle linebacker had a sack. But he did say that he thinks the first-string defense got gassed.
He did. He made a comment about the stamina police, I think, because I think there's some rules now about how much they can practice and such. And Vic's obviously not a fan because he said the stamina police maybe we're policing a little bit too hard.
Yeah, that worries me a little bit. The first-string defense.
They've got 2 weeks.
Yeah, we have 2 weeks. Not only that, but our depth is so good where we can rotate players. McTelvin Ajim had a great game yesterday. So if Draymond Jones or Shelby Harris needs a break, you can definitely put McTelvin Ajim in there, and he'll do well. Shamar Stefan, I didn't see much of him. I didn't evaluate him as much to see how he's doing, but we signed him from the Vikings, so we know he has talent, he has skill, and we signed him for a reason. So we have the depth in the defensive line, and also in the linebackers and the DBs as well. So we have depth all throughout our defense to definitely give these guys a break.
Yeah, and the fans are obviously excited. I'm going to pull up Bobby's comment after Richie's.
Go ahead.
So Bobby said, was electric, been to regular season games that weren't that loud, good to be back to normalcy. And it was loud. I mean, it was. That was, and then when they show the crowd and it was, 2/3 full, that just gets me juiced for what's going to happen when we presumably should be entering 2-0 with a game against the Jets. So I'm excited.
the first 3 games of the season, the Broncos should be 3-0, hands down, no question. You had the Giants, Jaguars, Jets.
Right.
That should be.
I shudder to think.
I don't want to jinx it, but come on now. With this squad, with this defense, they should even. And we didn't. If I'm correct, the Broncos didn't give up a single touchdown this preseason.
Not at all. Nope.
Not a single touchdown from first string all the way to third string. A single touchdown. So that's impressive. Richie says, "Oh, and Albert O needs to simmer. This is preseason. No vaulting, please." Yeah. So there's 1 or 2 ways you can look at that. One, hey, his knee looks good. He's feeling healthy. He's feeling confident. Great. The way I look at it was, you just came off a knee injury. What are you doing? This is preseason. Chill out. And that leads me to we're gonna finish these comments, and I'm gonna go to the next person we're gonna talk about, Johnny, who's not here today. What's up, Johnny? He says, in addition to the slow start by our offense, the amount of yardage our first team defense allowed the Rams' second and third team offense to achieve definitely concerned me. Yeah, it was the fatigue, the stamina. It was definitely something to see. Hopefully it's not too bad. Like I said, we have enough depth to switch in and out to give people breaks. Hopefully it wasn't too bad, because when you go against high-powered offenses like the Bills or the Chiefs or the Ravens like that, you can't be gassed because they will run all over you. Richie comes in again. Go ahead, Glenn.
I was going to say the feed that I got. I was watching the Broncos broadcasters, Steve Levy and Brian Greasy, and so they had even referenced that the Broncos weren't early on. They weren't doing any blitzes, and of course, 2 plays after they said that, that's when Jewel got the tackle or the sack, when everybody was just converging. If it wasn't Josie, it was going to be one of 3 other guys. So I'm not too worried about the stamina. I know I keep saying I'm not too worried. Maybe that's just the fact that we're 0-0 and we've got the first favorable schedule in years. Usually we have the second hardest schedule, the 5th hardest schedule. We haven't made the playoffs in at the time 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and we're given these hard schedules, and now we're very fortunate. I mean, they add a 17th game for us, and it's the Detroit Lions. So we can't squander these opportunities. We've got our division is hard enough. So I'm really hoping that we could start off strong, and you don't hope that players get injured, certainly, but the fact that the Ravens starting running back now is out for the season. Dobbins knee injury, so they're going to be even running with a backup. It's unfortunate, but the crazy part is that the Ravens last year were the number 1 team in the league when it comes to rushing yards, but they were last in the league when they came to passing yards. So for the Ravens and for people in the AFC North, the Steelers, the Bengals, the Browns, Lamar Jackson now has to throw the ball. This is where Lamar Jackson would have to step up and really improve, because they focus so much, they relied so much on the run game. Now they don't have as an explosive a run game. So now for the AFC, I think J.K. Dobbins, they said he's out for the season, correct? He is. He's done.
Yeah, so if you're in the AFC and the Ravens were top contenders, they've just been knocked down a couple pegs. So that wild card game may look more winnable for us when we get there. So that's I don't want to say a positive. I don't want to say that. But Richie says, so here's a thought. Anderson is a legit left tackle. Do you think he could start for another team? And could he be a trade option for us? Yes, he is a legit tackle. I think he can start for another team. And a trade option for us, yeah. I don't know if we'll get rid of him. He worked hard this year. They said the right tackle battle is close. I think Bobby Massey will get it. but I think he's in the same category as Drew. It was in a competition, showed great improvement, can be a starter elsewhere, and yeah, he's absolutely a trade option for us. My question is, who do we bring in? Who else is our other backup? So do we have enough depth at the tackle position to dish him out before October 5th, before the trade deadline?
All right, so let's talk about trades, and not just in regards to Calvin, because this is the first I've heard about making a swap there. I know Peyton's even mentioned that he's getting calls from the cornerback market, and we look at our depth and such. I don't want to trade anybody. The moment you get rid of a cornerback, someone's going to come up lame. Something's going to happen, and we're going to.
And we lose two cornerbacks immediately. We're like, we need him back.
What are we looking to get back from these guys? What are we missing that we need to get back from trading a Calvin Anderson? I think that I think a Tim Patrick could get traded, but all of a sudden, why? We've got a ton of cap room. We've got draft capital for next year already. What is the point in making any sort of, pulling the trigger on any of these things at this point? Let's go fully loaded in here, and maybe we talk about some of the roster spots too. We're already 50 minutes into the show, which is crazy, but it's flown by today. But I've never been more concerned about guys getting cut than I am this year. Because
we're so loaded.
We're so loaded that you have to think about some of your favorites that you would. We're not just picking this year's team. We're picking next year's as well. There are a lot of dudes on 1-year contracts, which makes perfect sense because it wasn't that they were trying to prove it to themselves. The cap is going to go up so much higher next year. So
I think we're number 2 in the league when cap space, right?
We have $28 million right now, and then the cap is going to be huge on top of that
because it was decreased this year,
and with the new TV deal. So if stuff rolls over, all of a sudden we have this ridiculous amount of money. We have Chubb and Sutton to sign, if they still have the mindset to do so. We've got
Miller,
we've got Vaughn, and
Kyle Fuller if he has a Pro Bowl season, yeah,
right. And there are certain guys that they're not going to bring back, like Glasgow and such.
K-Jack. Bryce, what do you think about Bryce Callahan? I've heard some people say Bryce Callahan is gone. Bryce Callahan, before he got injured, was one of the top cornerbacks. He was the number 1 nickel cornerback in the league last year. So do you think he has to have a right
now? Yeah, why?
Not right now. I didn't. I'm saying, do you think?
No, people are asking about now. I've seen it. There's he's the.
We have Patrick Surtain, but no. That's not no.
Callahan makes $7 million. That's throwing a deck chair off the Queen Mary. That's not enough to make a difference. If you were making $20 million and he were the nickel option, then that's one thing. But so let's look at some of the guys here are some of the guys I'm concerned about the team not taking.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, on the tight end side, I'm sure Salbert's going to make the team. I think the guy so exciting. So he's our third tight end. There's talk about them adding a fourth and keeping a back as a tight end fullback. I don't know about you. For me, I don't want to give up that spot. We need to use that spot somewhere else. Do we put Rippon out there and risk losing him? Who wouldn't pick up that guy? They said last night that the coaches say he could call his own plays. He's that smart. He knows things that he's like a future offensive coordinator, future coach waiting to happen. Why in a COVID world, when we're still dealing with this stuff, would we not keep him in the mix to, even if you've kept him separate from the guys, to make sure that we're covered in the event something happens?
That's what the Rams the Rams announcers were talking about yesterday. They said most teams don't have 3 quarterbacks; they have 2. And I remember the Broncos season last year with Kendall Hinton. I'm like, teams only have 2 quarterbacks. That's ridiculous. Because knowing with injuries and COVID now, it would be stupid not to have 3 quarterbacks. Because go ahead.
I think it's crazy. And he knows the offense. He's been here. He knows the players. He knows the coaches. He knows the routines.
Yeah, exactly.
Got to find a spot for him on the active roster.
He's the active. He'll probably be so that I learned yesterday. There's the 53-man roster, and then the practice squad roster is completely separate.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So he'll probably be the practice squad quarterback, and then Drew and Teddy will be on the 53-man roster.
But the practice squad, anyone can sign any of our players off the practice squad to put on their active.
Oh, so it's like, oh, okay, wow, I didn't know that.
So they have to clear waivers to get on our practice squad, first of all. So when we're talking about a potential Jamar Johnson cut at safety, someone's going to pick him up.
Yes.
We're going to lose him. And guess what? K-Jack is probably not going to be on the team next year. So I know Caden Stearns is kind of the heir apparent as it stands today. It's very early. I mean, premature to be going through this. But you need more depth there. So are we going to give up guys that could slide in next year? Seth Williams is another one. I think Tyree Cleveland's not going to make the team, but why would you keep a Deontay Spencer who just runs back kicks when you need a wide receiver that can do multiple things?
Trinity Benson can return kicks and catch the ball.
Right. Trinity Benson looks like he's been playing in the league 10 years. I mean, just the way he catches the ball, just the way he carries himself, he's unreal. I want 6 receivers with Benson and the first four are obvious, and then Benson and Seth as the 5th and 6th. But there's talk about putting Spencer, and then you send a guy and you're hoping to get him through to the practice squad. It's very chancy. Andre Mintz, the edge rusher. They probably
I like him. I watched him yesterday. He was always around the ball and was putting constant pressure on the quarterback.
Right. And this is a guy that they gave, he's an undrafted free agent. They gave him the biggest signing bonus of any of the undrafted guys. They have to keep him. They have to have a number 5. Who goes though? Where are you picking these guys? Do you take Austin Schlottman from the offensive line and not sign him? I would rather not have him and have one of these other guys. I'd rather not have a 4th tight end and have one of these other guys. I think they're that important to protect, not only for this year, but mainly for next.
Yeah, I don't think a 4th tight end is necessary. Sobert has Mundungus was talking yesterday, and he really believes that Sobert could make a run for the tight end number 2. That he's that good. And I agree with him. He's that good. He's really stepped up and showed that he can catch, he can block, and he's there when you need him. And he has really stepped up and earned himself a spot on this team. And yesterday's game and that catch from Teddy Bridgewater showed it with great concentration. So I don't think a 4th tight end is necessary. But EJ comes in talking about Locke. He says Locke still is holding onto the ball well past 4 to 5 seconds and not getting off his intended target quick enough and going through his progressions. EJ, I do agree with you. He held the ball too long. I think that was a covered sack. I think there were no receivers open. You can see he went through his progressions and nobody was open. I think one thing that he can learn from Teddy Bridgewater is navigating and manipulating the pocket and his internal clock. I think that's one thing he can learn by sitting and learning from a veteran. That's you. The best way to learn it is in the game. But they don't want him to learn in the game this year. They want him to learn on the sideline, which is fine. But yeah, his internal clock definitely needs some work. Bobby Crouch, what's up, Bobby? He says only 1 water break, not 2, in regards to practices. He says Richie. Dave says Richie, like Locke, I think Anderson is more valuable on the roster than as trade bait. I agree. I think Anderson is one of those really good, quote unquote, backup tackles that if Bobby Massey or Garrett Bowles, something happens, whatever, Calvin Anderson is a tackle where you're like, okay, he's not the starter, but you know what? I can deal with him. He knows the offense. He's got some type of cohesion with the starters. And he can learn on the go, and he can fine-tune some things, and he can make it work. So I think he is more valuable on the roster than he is as trade bait.
So Isaiah, I have not heard this point made anywhere. So maybe you have, but my opinion going into training camp was that the Broncos were definitely going to have 3 running backs. And I believe that the Boone injury really put the Broncos in a bind where they basically have to eat up another roster spot because Boone is supposed to be ready for the second week. And Royce was probably going to be trade bait at that time. And he was primed and ready to go to the Rams, I would think. And then Boone got injured. So that's another place where we would have been able to grab a spot.
That's a tough position because Royce Freeman really stepped up when Mike Boone went down. We haven't even get to see Mike Boone. So
right.
Royce Freeman really stepped up and looks good and looks like he has that RB3 spot. Do they switch Royce Freeman? Do they give him a roster spot and switch him to special teams when Mike Boone comes back? Does he keep that RB3 position and Mike Boone goes specifically to special teams? So if Mike Boone comes back healthy week 2, who's your RB3?
So I'll go back to when Ben Albright was on our show. He said something that I was so shocked by in regards to the running back position. He said that if Boone had not been injured, he was going to be RB2 behind Gordon, and Javonte was going to be RB3 to start the season. Even though knowing that Javonte was going to be the number 1 guy the following year, that he had Boone as a second.
Wow, so, that's different. That's the first time I've ever heard that.
I was shocked.
That's a hot take. That's a hot take because I've never heard that. I mean, the way we saw Javonte Williams, and even though they sat Javonte Williams yesterday, because basically they're saying we've seen enough to know this guy's legit. We don't need to play him.
But also, Melvin hadn't played at all, so they needed to get him some action. Crockett's even good.
He is. Yes, he is.
Right.
Yes, he is. And I was actually impressed. I was like, who is this guy? I think he's also another special teams guy. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the things that I've been hearing around this preseason around the NFL is the way to make the team is through special teams, which is crazy because everybody overlooks special teams. But when you have Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams, Mike Boone, and Royce Freeman ahead of you, you just kill it on special teams.
You know who overlooks
earn your way through that?
Most? Tom McMahon.
The coach of special teams. The coach of special teams. Yeah. That's terrible. Richie says interior defensive line pressure was a concern for me. We didn't really start moving the middle of the pocket until later in the game. I saw that, Richie, and I was trying to pay attention to Mike Purcell. It was weird to me. It seemed as if the defense or the Broncos was just looking past the Rams and looking toward the season. I felt like they already knew who's making the roster, who's done what, especially the starters. They know they're going to make the roster. So the pocket wasn't collapsing. I mean, you could tell Von Miller and Bradley Chubb were going hard and doing what they always do. But when it came to Shelby Harris, Draymond Jones, and Mike Purcell, the interior defensive line is more important than people realize. Because if that pocket collapses quickly, it makes it harder for the running back to be able to take off somewhere. A lot of times running backs don't always take off from outside of the pocket. They go through inside of the pocket and get 3, 4, 5, 6 yards. But the pocket wasn't really collapsing. And in response to that as well, in addition to that, the Rams were able to get a lot of yards per carry. And that's where Mike Purcell makes his money. That's where he got his contract was. And that's where we missed him last year was after he got injured. There were more yards per game last year against us once Mike Purcell got injured. So that was definitely something I was looking at. And that was on the first 2 drives. So I don't know if it was fatigue, complacency, or they just weren't trying to go 100% to get injured. I don't know. But that was definitely a concern I saw as well. Glenn, what do you think?
Well, I think one of the most overlooked parts of preseason and the reason for preseason is because they don't count, but they are live competition against a completely different team, is that here's your opportunity to try some things that maybe you're not particularly great at, or you're coming up with a new scheme that you want to give a shot to. This became really evident in the quarterback competition when people were complaining that the calls were, some of the things were not in Drew's wheelhouse, that he was being asked to do. Mm-hmm. But the fact is where else can you try that stuff? Where else can you improve those things? So perhaps, and I haven't delved into it deeper than this, but perhaps the defense was working on some other things that they just wanted to try out, knowing that if we lose this game, who cares? It's a good opportunity to try it. So when we're giving up some of the yardage, or we're not, blitzing at a certain thing and at a certain time, and we're trying some different things, that perhaps that's just designed that way, not to particularly counteract that play that's they anticipate being called, but maybe they're just trying to work on some stuff. So
so they can go back on film and see, okay, how did this work? I mean, whether it's going against first, 1s, 2s, or 3s, let's try this new scheme out. And they can go back on film and say, okay, that one worked against this offensive scheme. That one didn't work against this offensive scheme. So yeah, I think I definitely agree with you there. Denver Gator comes in. What's up, Gator? He says, what's up, Broncos country? I know the whole offseason has been about quarterback, but how about that defense? We get to see what a true Fangio defense can be when he gets smart athletic talent. I agree with you. And that's one thing me and Glenn talked about. In 3 games, in 12 quarters, the Broncos gave up 0 touchdowns. You know, it's preseason. I don't think we played against any first team starters. There were hardly any, but yeah, still that's impressive. Our defense is athletic, talented, diverse, and hungry. And that's really something we're definitely going to look at that and see Vic Fangio's offensive mind, especially when you have smart players like Justin Simmons. They really love Justin Simmons because he thinks the same way Vic does. Patrick Surtain, who they say is NFL ready already. Kyle Fuller, who came from Chicago and played that scheme, understands it. Ronald Darby, who's a pass breakup machine. And then you have Josie Jewell, Alexander Johnson, who know the scheme, who know how to call it. And then you got Von Miller and Bradley Chubb. So yeah, it's going to be a great defense. And one thing I saw from Caden Stearns that I see him picking up from K-Jack is he picked up really fast. Is the way you earn a spot as a strong safety is to hover that line of scrimmage. And one thing that we love K-Jack for is his run stopping defense, how he crashes the line of scrimmage and gets those tackles. I saw Caden Stearns doing that immediately. So they're definitely, I think with Teddy Bridgewater coming in and teaching Drew Lock learning from Teddy Bridgewater, I see that like not like cancer, but it's spreading like wildfire throughout the team. Malik Reed with Jonathan Cooper, K-Jack with Caden Stearns, Justin Simmons with PJ Locke. All these vets it's not like they're a competition, like they're a team. And it's the first time we've seen it. They have no problem teaching these younger guys, hey, this is what you do, this is how you do it. And you start to see the similarities, and you start to see them pick up these things and these nuances. And it's actually really impressive, the camaraderie and chemistry that this team has, especially the defense. But more importantly, the wide receiver core is closer than ever. I mean, Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler are on year 2, and they seem like they're best friends. They seem like they're best friends. And Melvin Gordon's in the picture behind them. They're doing dual conferences. Cortland Sutton and Von Miller doing dual conferences. They look happy. They look like they're actually enjoying themselves. They look like they're enjoying the game for what it is.
Yeah, for anyone that didn't see the post game last night, it's certainly worth watching. You had Vic, you had Teddy, Melvin wearing a sweet Broncos red.
Yeah, I like that jacket. Yeah.
But then you had Vaughn and Cortland come out side by side. And when you actually when they started talking about what good of friends they are, that they play golf, that really their friendship grew because they were sitting in the training room first thing in the morning, rehabbing together, and it's the camaraderie is one of the things that excites me most about the team. Mm-hmm. And it sounds silly, but that Budweiser cam, the Bud Light cam that they post the
and the practices
guys come running, just the busting the chops, the interaction with one another, the players goofing around, even that field day when you saw the footage of what was going on with that. There's a closeness to this team mm-hmm. that lends itself to being successful, and that camaraderie is very, very exciting. And I think Vic Fangio is one of those guys that, even though he's old school, I think he is big on these players being tight.
Yeah, and one thing go ahead, finish, Glenn. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, with this defense, the fact that 2 of the starting cornerbacks already knew the system. I mean, Kyle Fuller walked in knowing Vic Fangio's system. He had it down. There was no learning curve there.
That's impressive. That's a great pickup.
That's huge. And guess what? He can then talk to Ojemudia. He can then talk to Ronald Darby. They're all peers at this point. The younger guys, when you have these smart players, when you have a Patrick Surtain that they say this guy can be placed anywhere, I think it was Vaughn that referenced him, that he's going to be on Waller and Kelsey because he's that intelligent and can pick up things.
Akeem Talib said the same thing yesterday.
And Caden Stearns, obviously an intelligent guy, hard worker. These young guys that are showing it. Guess what the older players are comfortable doing then? taking them under the wing. Jonathan Cooper working hard, coming back, obviously a smart dude. That's when the older players, if they don't see you working your ass off, they don't want you. They see it more as a waste of your time, I would think, because just human nature, you would think that if someone's not putting the work in, why am I going to, put the work in to help you? But these younger guys that are showing it, man, being up here all of a sudden with Von Miller, being up here with Justin Simmons, being up here with Kyle Fuller. I mean, it just is, it's insane. I mean, there's so much opportunity here.
Yeah, that camaraderie crosses the line of scrimmage. It's offense and defense with Cortland Sutton and Von Miller. And Aqib Talib mentioned this. Dave said, you're flexing your big brain again, Glenn, so stop it. Aqib Talib mentioned this yesterday. He said in the 2015 Super Bowl season, when Peyton Manning stepped out to recover and Brock Osweiler stepped in, they told Brock, just take care of the ball. We will take care of the rest. And I feel that's that camaraderie they had with Brock. They said where they came to the office, they said, hey, check this out. You do this, we'll do this. Don't even worry about it. We got your back. And I feel like, it kind of reminded me of, when you said Cortland Sutton and Von Miller, it's the same thing. Hey, go out there and make this big play. We'll take care of it on the offensive end. Hey, you take care of the ball. We'll get the ball back on the defensive end. Don't worry about it. We'll both do our jobs. And as you said, 50,000 plus fans came out for a preseason game. There's something around Broncos country that's different this year, and we all know it. The players know it, the coaches know it, the management know it, and the fans especially know it, because that's one of the largest preseason games I've ever heard of, and they're still missing 20,000 fans. They're still missing 20,000, and it's still loud as a regular season game. So there's something in the air and the atmosphere that's different this year, and we all know it. That comes from, all these players are on 1 year deals, but they know that this year it's a change in tide. It's a turning point. Where they're saying the last 5 years since Peyton Manning left, has been miserable, terrible. The fans are tired of it. The players are tired of it. The coaches are tired of it. Everybody's tired of the carousel of quarterbacks, carousel of coaches, carousel of players, and all this stuff. And so they know this year is the first year in a long time that, hey, we're tired of being disrespected by the media. But, they came out, I think they came out with, a bunch of people have come out with a bunch of polls and videos and top 5 and top 10. The Broncos steadily get disrespected. Von Miller and Bradley Chubb weren't even in the top 5 pass rushers. So Broncos country is tired of being disrespected. This year is the year to change it. And now all of a sudden, Jerry Jeudy's in the top 3 up-and-comers and stuff. And so now they're starting to recognize and to talk about it. It's because the Broncos, they shut up and they went to work, and they're tired of it. They're tired of it, and we are too. And so we're just all excited to get back to football and to really show the world who the Broncos are now. We're back on the main stage. And so we can kick the Chiefs' ass.
Yeah, you can't lose. You can't lose and be respected, right? You
yes.
Can't. So if you're unhappy about not being on this list or that list, then win. And there's a lot of complaining going on online. There's a lot of doom and gloom, and then there's a lot of optimism. If we start out 3-0 like we should, if we start out 4-0, if we beat the Ravens in our second home game, if we, if things
that's week 4, right?
Right. So
if we beat the Ravens week 4 and go 4-0, we're on the map. It's all eyes on us. Don't choke now. This is what we wanted.
Winning
eat the cake.
ends it all.
Yep.
Winning ends all of the negativity and the complaining, because what do you have to bitch about at that point? So these players don't want to lose again. I mean, Justin Simmons has never played a playoff game. Isn't that unreal?
Is that true?
No, he came in right after they lost. They won the Super Bowl.
Wow. So he's a Pro Bowl, the number 1 free safety in the league, and has never played a playoff game. And so our team is so young. I think very few of these guys have ever played very few of these guys. Maybe on one hand, you can name the people on the Broncos has played a playoff game. Well,
and I don't know that number because there have been so many guys that have come from other teams. So
yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking that as well.
But from a Super Bowl standpoint, Vaughn and McManus are the only two.
That's it. That's it.
That wasn't that long ago.
So no, it doesn't.
We should address this, Richie. Because he said he disagrees with me. But Shermer did, and I know he did that. But how do you get Drew to? How do you get Drew to improve on certain weaknesses if you don't put them in a live situation? You can practice till you're blue in the face against your guys that know what's coming and such. But why not take that opportunity? You're not embarrassing the guy. It's practice. You're a preseason game is essentially a glorified practice with a scoreboard. That means nothing. We're excited about being 3-0 just because there's some momentum. The players are excited. They ended it at home. So there's a lot of good juice going on. And I love that Peyton always says juice. So I've kind of incorporated it into my vernacular.
Well, what I will say is I mentioned this yesterday.
I want to say prune juice. Okay. I don't want to hear it.
Prune juice. Prune juice Glenn. But I mentioned this yesterday. I think I tweeted it. Teddy Bridgewater, they mixed it up yesterday. Teddy Bridgewater actually, which is what we don't see often from Teddy, was play action. They actually threw a few play action plays in there for Teddy. It looked weird, looked different, but he completed them. And then when Drew went in there, the drive in which Drew scored, I think it was mostly play action. And I tweeted, I said, damn, Drew was really good in play action, but he topped it off in the red zone in shotgun. Mm-hmm. And what was the name of that tight end? That wasn't Sobert that scored that touchdown. That was number 89.
Austin Ford.
Austin Ford. That was a great route he ran.
Yeah.
That was a great route he ran. Yeah, and Drew threw it on the money right before the other linebacker or the safety came and stepped up. He threw it right on the money where the tight end didn't get crushed, where it could have been an incomplete pass, and he did it out of shotgun. But that whole drive down the field was in play action. And I tweeted, I said, damn, Drew was really good in play action.
Yeah, he is.
But he needs to improve in shotgun. And I was glad he scored out of shotgun. And I think, me being a coach probably don't know what I'm doing. But if I was put Drew in, I have Drew strictly do shotgun. I'd do throw a couple play actions in there to make sure he can do it, but I'd have him do shotgun. I'd have him turn that weakness into a strength. Mm-hmm. And then with Teddy Bridgewater, the majority of the plays I throw at Bridgewater are downfield plays. I didn't want to turn that weakness into a strength.
Right. And Austin Fort was another guy that he was probably going to make the team last year as a tight end. He was from Wyoming. He got injured. And apparently after he scored that touchdown, and obviously it was because of his proximity to Colorado, at Wyoming, it was a very popular score. But apparently some of the congratulations that he got, hugs on the sideline, were from the training staff that helped him rehab last year. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really, I thought that
they're close. So basically what you're telling me is Dove Valley is close in and out and top to bottom.
It sure feels like George Payton has a big hand in that. Another thing that we had asked Ben, I asked him about the culture change, and Ryan Edwards said the same thing, is that players now feel like they're not a one and done and a contract here as a Bronco. With Elway, all he wanted to do was win a negotiation. He'd either lowball guys, lose guys, or just let them go. Rarely do we ever sign somebody to a second deal. We would just replace them with a cheaper rookie contract. And now guys realize that they could be a Bronco for life.
Interesting.
Bringing Simmons back, signing Shelby, picking up Vaughn's huge contract after a major injury. So when you have that hope and that culture change and you feel respected by the bosses, it changes a lot in that building, and it goes top to bottom. And and
Kareem Jackson's a great example. George Payton, we let him go test the market, didn't fulfill his needs, and George Payton had no problem going back and getting him. They had no problem sitting down and talking again, getting it a deal and bringing them back.
He hoped he'd come back.
And that's that culture change you're talking about. I think last year Elway went. Who do we went? Devontae Bosby, I think, is the one player we got rid of, and then we went back and got him.
Right.
But that's because we needed him. We didn't have anybody else. So that's a sucky situation versus K-Jack. We're like, hey, we want to keep you. Go see what's best for you and your family. And then if you want to come back, hey, arms are welcome. Like the prodigal son, please come back. So it's definitely a culture change of a more of a family environment, a familiar environment. For example, like you said, the family day when they were all out there. You saw Justin Simmons playing with was it his son or daughter? I can't remember. Or you saw Shelby Harris. Von Miller had his son just born, and everybody congratulated him. The press congratulated him. The coaches even gave him the day off and said, "Go take care of what you got to do." Like you said, it's a different culture change. It's not just it's personal fused with business.
Mhm.
And sometimes that's the best job you'll ever have, is when you're comfortable at work and the people you work with or you consider family.
Right.
And so that's that culture change. And I don't know what George Payton did. I don't know what he said. But even Vic Fangio looks more calm and more collected out there on the field.
Well, I think one of the things with Peyton, or a couple of the things, he's very close with Vic. It sounds like there's a mutual respect there. Peyton said last night in the interview before the game, that they talk all the time. He's Vic's sounding board. Vic is his sounding board. Another thing that cannot get unnoticed is that Peyton, being coming from the scouting side of things, is he kept the entire Broncos scouting staff. And even after the draft, he didn't replace them. So
Interesting.
When you don't walk into a place and immediately think he's the boss. Let's not forget that. Elway is not the boss. It's George. But when he walks in there and he doesn't change everything, he doesn't strip down the defense. He even said, this defense had a lot of injuries last year. It didn't deserve to be, stripped all the way down. There were a lot of great players that are in that locker room. We didn't have to do, a full revamping. And so when your ego allows you to still not change everything just for the sake of change and put your imprint on it, you're putting your imprint on it by doing that. And I think it's more of an imprint.
And it makes people, me personally, if I go to a job where I know that I'm not going to get fired at any second, but they're willing to give you a chance and let you see, and if you show your worth, they're more than happy to keep you or even go after you. That makes you want to work for them. That makes you enjoy coming to work. And that's when you have the most efficient and the most success, is when you want to work and everybody else around you wants to work. Denver Gator, last question. He says, do you guys think Sternad will get a first week starting nod, or just brought in as a rotational role? If so, who will be next to him when it starts a rotation? I don't think he gets the start. I think Josie Jewell and Alexander Johnson, will start. I think he is rotational. I think he could be that. I think he has to tune up his pass coverage. He's fast, he's athletic, but he's always seems to be a step behind on his pass coverage. He always seems to be chasing backs out the back foot or tight ends on the flat. It always looks like he's chasing someone down and they get 3-4 yards. 3-4 yards is better than 12 yards over the seam to Travis Kelce, or 16 yards and a quick out to Travis Kelce or Darren Waller. So that's improvement. On third down, I think he'll come in as rotational, and I think he'll be next to Alexander Johnson on third downs. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think he gets a start just because the two guys ahead of him haven't done anything to lose the opportunity to be starters. I think his performance in training camp did get Josie Jewell, Honey Bear, back a little bit sooner.
Yeah. But that groin healed real quick.
I think Sternad's going to play a lot, and it wouldn't be completely out of the realm of possibility. In fact, I think it's very likely that it's going to be Sternad and Browning as your 2022 starting inside linebackers for sure.
So you don't think Alexander Johnson and Josie Jewell will be back in 2022?
I don't think so.
Interesting. Well, yeah, that's yet to see, and that's a conversation for another podcast. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to close out today. We went an hour and 20 minutes today. We also want to thank Glenn Hauser for coming in, stepping up, and being an awesome guest with that big brain of his, spitting the statistics as always. The time flew by, Glenn, but yeah, we definitely appreciate you coming by NRWOB and sitting here and talking with the NRW crew. So remember, guys, always like, subscribe, share, and comment. We're here for you guys. We are a fan-based podcast. We are a fan-led podcast, and we are Broncos-based. It's all about the Broncos, baby. All about the Broncos. So like, subscribe, share, hit that comment, hit that notification bell, as always, so that way you know when we are here. So you can follow MHRT Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch all at the same time. MHRT Podcast. It's simple as that. So NRWOB, Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue, will no longer be on Sundays starting this week. This is why you got to hit that notification bell. That's why it's important. Today is the last Sunday that we will be doing Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue. Fridays, NRWOB will be there. It'll be at 7654 on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Season 2 is starting. You do not want to miss Season 2. I'm telling you, Season 2 has arrived. If you have not subscribed, you suck. You're going to miss Season 2. I'm telling you, we're bringing things and we're bringing flavor that you've never seen before. So you don't want to miss Season 2. Also, you guys don't want to miss the other ones. You don't want to miss Broncos Talk on Tuesdays at 7654 on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch as well. And that's with the 6'10" Mexican and Richie. Also, make sure you tune in on Thursdays for our flagship pod, MHRT Podcast with Mundungus Creevy, Glenn Hauser, who's right next to me, Mr. Boggins, and a 6'10" Mexican at 7654 on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch at the same time. So, guys, I cannot stress this enough. Season 2 has arrived. Season 2 is in direct parallel with the new season, so you guys aren't going to want to miss it. You guys are going to love it. We're going to get the word out. Also, you can DM me at word_over_world or at Glenn Hauser to get the fantasy league details. We need guys to come in so we can fill this fantasy league up, and then we can talk trash back on the podcast so I can call you out for sucking the previous week. So we definitely need to do that. And before we go, Glenn, as always, am I missing anything? You want to say anything?
No,
let me know.
It's been great. But we've had people ask where Mike is. He had a church event tonight. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, Mike's always here, guys. So, Mike will be here, but it's glad to have a fan base who is always looking for someone that's missing and knows when someone's missing. Johnny also switched his work schedule. So today he wasn't able to do NRWOB, but we'll be back Friday. So that's not an issue. So Glenn, we're going to close out today with the hashtag Mile High 5. And like Johnny said, Johnny's not going to quit. We are not going to quit until the Mile High 5 is on the Jumbotron at Mile High Stadium. So, Glenn, are you ready?
I'm ready, man.
Okay. All right. So it's a 3 count. 1, 2, 3, and then Mile High 5. All right. No, that's not right. It's Mile High 5 and then clap. Got it. There we go. I got it. All right. Don't yell at me. All right. Ready? Mile High 5. There it is. There it is. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming into another episode of Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue with Mile High Roundtable Podcast. We want to thank Glenn once again for joining in on us today. We can't tell you how much we greatly appreciate that, and you're welcome on the show at any time. So, guys, with that, we give you a Mile High salute, and we will see you on Friday.